actually have a women's sensual awakening retreat. So that one of the ways I like to work with women is to bring them together as a community. And in February, we have a women's sensual awakening retreat to be able to really like have a space to be able to talk about what's going on with our sexuality and what's going on with our bodies and how to reconnect and feel more empowered in our bodies. And so I think that's the main way that I'm working with women specifically right now. But in the last 5 years, I've put a lot of my attention on working with couples.
I just feel like your story is more common than uncommon. And so I wonder how do people find you or realize they need help in that area?
Yeah. Well, people find me by researching, sex problems or sexual trauma or, intimacy issues. Like literally, that's what people tell me. I wrote a book in 2018. It was a bestseller called Living an Orgasmic Life, which really is a combination of my own story and my own sexual healing journey, as well as practical tools and stories about some of my clients as well. And so I think people find me, I still get people emailing me and saying like, oh my God, your book is amazing. It changed my life. And I'm like, oh my God, that is what I want to do in this world, right? I want to be able to help women and couples who have all these challenges, like learn how to heal. So I think that's one of the ways that people find me. I talk on podcasts and, I try to be pretty out there as much as I can. And thankfully, now in 2025, there's so many more resources than there were, when I was going through this, right? There's Instagram and there's a lot more information. People are able to talk about sex more. I still think it's harder in my generation, in the baby boom generation, to have some of those conversations. And I do see a lot of women. I would say my average couples are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. The last international retreat, I had a couple where he was 89 and she was 76. One of the hats that I wear a lot of different hats in the area of sexuality, but one of the hats that I wear is a certified somatic experiencing trauma practitioner. So I went through a 3-year pretty intensive training program. And the reason I did that is because, there's so much trauma, right? Like almost every time that somebody shows up, man or woman, with some sort of sexual challenge, almost always it relates back to some sort of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, some sort of trauma. And yes, and I think that's very true. Like the older generation feels like this is something I need to keep hidden. I've had a lot of clients for the first time ever reveal to me or to their partners sexual abuse and trauma that they experienced as a child that they just kept under wraps. But you can always be able to work with your trauma and heal your sexual trauma. I use a very body-based, somatic-based approach with the belief system from Dr. Peter Levine that our trauma is in our body and we hold it in our body. And so it's a very gentle approach of being able to begin to release some of the trauma that's in our body and then learning how to regulate our nervous system. But yes, I'm so glad that you do that podcast, but I do want everyone to know, no matter what your age is, like that trauma can be healed for sure. In my book, I talk about shame being the nastiest 5-letter word in the universe, and it's true. It is really systemic in our bodies when we experience that shame. The best way, what you're doing is absolutely correct. The best way to rid ourselves of shame, whether it's sexual shame or sexual trauma, is to be able to start to talk about it and to normalize it, right? Because we go through the world, just like I did, like thinking that I was broken, right? Like I'm the only person in the world who's never had an orgasm until I hit 52, and that's not true. There's a lot of other women, even young ones that come and see me who are experiencing that, but because of that shame, we keep it to ourselves. So finding somebody that you can talk to, whether it's a friend or a counselor, or your partner, right? And start to normalize it. Or, there are certainly a lot of groups for sexual abuse for women who have sexually abused and have been sexually abused, and being in a recovery group like that, where you're with other people. So, like, oh, I'm not alone. I mean, really not alone. 1 out of 5 women have experienced trauma or non-consensual touch, right? So that is, we unfortunately very, very common. It's just that it's pushed under the carpet because often women feel like they were, especially when they're young, that they were responsible for it, right? That somehow their actions caused their mother's boyfriend to abuse them. I mean, no logical sense, but as a child, that is what we believe, and that belief stays, in our body. Or, they experience some pleasure, like even maybe an orgasm when they were touched, right? And a lot of those women who have had that can't have an orgasm because they've confounded pleasure with guilt and shame. There's something called shame trauma. Shame trauma. It's a real thing. And it emanates from purity culture. And not just like, purity culture, but even like on the Orthodox Jewish side, right? It's both sides of the spectrum, right? Of all different religions as well. The way, the messages that we received around sex forms our intimacy and sexual blueprint. And we take that and we bring that into our adult relationships. And so in a purity culture, in a very sex negative, sex shaming environment, there's no comfort with sex. A lot of women are also like taught that it's all about the man's pleasure. Like they don't even talk about it. I mean, in general, we don't talk about women's pleasure, but they really don't talk about it in a purity culture environment. And it's very, very hard to get that, out of your belief system because it's been drilled in. And the way in which, oh my God, the dances that they have with the fathers marrying the whatever, all of that. And, women, the whole thing I've heard about, like, you're an Oreo cookie and nobody wants to eat you if you've had sex with somebody before marriage, right? Like the amount of intense shaming that goes on is incredible. And then women get married, in this purity culture. Nobody's told them about sex. And then the first night, it's horrible. It never gets better, right? Because they have no experience with it and they have all the shame. And our body is very smart. It protects us, right? It definitely protects us. For me as a woman, I had a lot of vaginismus, which is basically the vagina is a muscle. And it basically just contracted, closed, so that any type of penetration, even with a finger, was excruciating. And that's a physiological response to a trauma that, that we experienced as children, or in my case, as a child, and then as, an adult at the hands of some doctors. And the body's just trying to protect us, right? She's just trying to say, like, oh, this isn't safe. I'm going to shut down, right? So, that happens a lot in both. I've worked with Orthodox women who've experienced that, and I've worked with a number of people in purity culture, the Mormon religion as well, who've experienced shame trauma, and it takes a lot to be able to move that trauma out of your body and start to also the belief system, right? To start to believe that I don't actually have to have this belief anymore. I can actually believe that I'm entitled to have pleasure and that my body is there for that.
How do we start challenging those beliefs of the women that they don't even know that they know, because they just think it's normal?
Yeah. I think we start by asking questions, how's your sex life? What's it been, you're 50, you're in perimenopause. What's going on for you? Like, is it painful? Are you feeling like you're not interested in sex anymore? Do you get any pleasure out of it? Like, just starting to be curious and asking people questions that they can maybe start to digest themselves without lecturing or telling them it has to be in a certain way, but just, with your friends, a lot of girls, a lot of women talk about their sex lives. But, I think we all have to take it upon ourselves. Those of us who do have good sex lives, those of us who are coaches, those of us who work in the women's health field. Like, I try to teach OBGYNs, like, and doctors, like, on your questionnaire, you need to ask your clients, like, how's your sex life? Are you having any challenges, right? So that we can start to just make it more normal. Like, this is a normal part of being a woman, and certainly a normal part of an aging woman. And we need to be able to have these conversations with our friends and with our healthcare providers and with our therapists. And it's hard because this whole shame culture overrides our entire society in the United States, right? My hypothesis is, and I know I'm right about this because I've worked with hundreds of couples, we're not having very good sex. It's just not. It's quick. It doesn't actually work with our arousal pattern. A lot of women are having obligation sex because they want to make sure that their partner isn't going to leave them, that this is what they're supposed to do, that we've been conditioned to do it. We don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to tell our partner what we want. We don't even know half the time what we want in bed, right? And when all of that shows up and then you start going through menopause, you're like, oh, perfect excuse, right? I don't need to put this on my to-do list anymore. I'm done, right? But there's a whole possibility, there's whole opportunities to learn with your partner, which is what I do on my retreats because they're not talk therapy. Talk therapy doesn't get you anywhere when it comes to healing your sex life and changing it. They're interactive, they're experiential. You have to have a felt sense of each other to be able to feel that flow between you, between the erotic energy building. And, like, I teach people, like, let's just start from the beginning. Not only are we doing like psychoeducation about women's anatomy and men's anatomy and the different types of orgasms and pleasure that you can have, but we're also like focusing on, like, let's experiment on different ways in which you can touch each other in a way that actually feels good. And let's try like different things and begin to notice, like, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, right? Really taking, like, for some people, I'm like, they'll tell me, like, we need Sex 101, Xanet. And I'm like, great, we can do Sex 101. That's fantastic. I just had a couple here in their 40s. They were essentially both virgins and then they got married, right? And it was incredibly eye-opening for them to be able to have the experience of, like, even just trying different types of touch and learning how to experience each other in different ways. So there's so much possibility to be able to make your sex life better. And I think most, and I'm talking about heteronormative male female most couples, right? Most men really want to please their partner. They do. They want to make their partner feel good. And they know when she doesn't feel good, and they know when she's faking, and they know when she's just, it's obligation sex and it doesn't feel good for them either, right? But they don't know because they haven't been taught, and they've been socialized through pornography, just like we all have pornography and movies and popular culture, what sex is supposed to look like. And that's not actually what good sex looks like. So, that's what I want people to take away. Like, I'm having amazing sex at age 65. This couple who came to my retreat in Dominica, they were 89 and 76. They have sex 3 times a week, right? They're amazing and they're having amazing sex as well. And that's not to say that things don't change and that you have to try different positions and you have to focus more maybe on outer course, which is more touching than penetration sometimes. But all of that can change as well.